Apparently, the United States of America is on a proverbial knife edge, and the knives have finally been out. So, after the president Joe Biden withdrew from the next elections campaign, there has been Kamala Harris of the Democratic Party has brought about a certain discipline in the party with billions of dollars in the bank and without any gaps or scandals affecting the party. But now it seems as Trump's campaign has also gained steam, and by the poll predictions, the various poll predictions which are being done by the political analysts. So it is going to be a very tight race between Republicans, Donald Trump, and Democrats, Kamala Harris. So we are not going to discuss what all barbs are being thrown, who is calling stupid to whom, who is threatening whom. We are going to learn about some of the basics of the American electoral system. So our agenda for today, so for agenda for today, a bit about the two major political parties, then method of voting or form of government, some doubts or some facts about the candidates as well as the voting patterns, then the major point, the major concept, electoral college. What is this? Then some additional concepts such as the concept of swing states. And finally, some issues, some important issues and opinions of the two candidates over which debates have taken place over the past few months of campaigning. Fine. So let us begin. Now, majorly two parties are there, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. Now, both have different ideologies and they have evolved over decades, over years. But we are not going to delve into that. It will take a large amount of time. What we are going to discuss here, some basics, the symbols. So, Democratic is basically represented by the donkey, and Republican is basically represented by an elephant. So I just was curious to know what is this concept, why donkey and why elephants. So basically, there was this political satirist and cartoonist in the early years known as Thomas Nest. So he used to make, of course, political cartoons. So he was amused by the chaotic political system, the messy menagerie surrounding the politics, and the whims and fancies of and idiosyncrasies of how the political circus takes place. So he decided to represent it in the form of two animals, donkey and elephant. Elephant basically indicates that the government represents, or it is akin to a slow lumbering motion with hardly any sense of direction, and donkey represents a stubborn animal or a stubborn form of government who is inclined to dive into the abyss or jump over the cliff. So this is the basic history. Now, another important, or you might have read that the presidential elections normally take place on a Tuesday. The election date this year is 5 November 2024, and the not just any Tuesday, the Tuesday after the first Monday of that particular month, so that the Tuesday does not fall on 1st November. Now, a little bit of interesting history behind that. So till 1845, different states, there are total of 50 states in USA. So different states had their different patterns or different forms of voting. But in 1845, the uniformity started to establish. Now in 1845, during that period, even USA was primarily an agrarian society. Okay. So it was not as industrialized as today. So basically, what happened was, so throughout the year, they were busy harvesting, reaping, sowing of crops. So during the year, so November was the only feasible month which could be ascertained, at which in which a particular date could be ascertained to conduct elections. Now November was decided. Now we come to selecting one of the 7 days of the week. Ideally, like in places like India, we usually conduct elections on a weekend, like Saturday or Sunday. But here what happens was, since the majority of the population were Orthodox Christians, so Sunday they usually decided that they used to keep as a day of rest and worship. Okay. Then Wednesday, Wednesday was a day during which they used to go to the markets and sell their produce. Then there was also lack of transportation. Transportation was not developed. So if voting had to take place, of course, there was no postal ballot system. So they had to travel several miles. So obviously, days, 1 or 2 day travel was to be. So if Sunday is a holiday, Monday was cancelled out. If Wednesday was also busy for them, so Thursday was cancelled out. Now the only feasible day was left as Tuesday. And on 1 November, why 1 November, 1st November is avoided to clash with the election date, because once 1st November, the farmers or the workers, they used to tend and balance out their book of accounts over the previous period or the previous month. So this is the history. And one important point among this is that, unlike in countries like India, where it is a holiday, it is the election day, the offices are closed. In US, it is not a holiday. It is not considered a federal holiday. Some states may decide it otherwise, but it is not a federal holiday. So, although it started, the reason for conducting elections on Tuesday started due to the farmers and the lack of transportation and the ease of communication. But now, the fun of elections, even in the 2020 presidential elections, the total voter turnout was 66%. So here also in India, elections it is around between 60 to 70%, 50%. So America is the oldest democracy. Our nation India is the largest democracy. Some interesting features we'll also know. Okay. Next on the agenda, like we talked in the initial part of the lecture, will be the form of government and the voting system. This is very interesting because it holds resonance with India's form of government as well as UK's, Britain's form of government. And just to inform who does not know, India has borrowed India. India's constitution is the lengthiest constitution in the world. It is the largest democracy, and it has to represent various diversities, various languages, various regions, various cultures. So it could not afford to ape or copy or mimic one constitution of a particular country. So it has evidences, or it has taken cues from various countries like France, UK, US, Canada, Australia, even Germany, Japan. So this, now similarities. Now form of government, some important points about the form of government in the US and how voting takes place is also very interesting. So even if the audience which is watching this lecture either from USA, abroad, and the Indian citizen, so it should interest you. So form of government, first of all, the legislative part. The legislative part is bicameral. Bicameral means in the government, in the legislative branch, there are two houses, the upper house and the lower house. In American terms, The lower house is known as the House of Representatives, and the upper house is called the Senate. Now, how does this resonate with UK and India? So, in case of India, so India also the legislature, the Sansad or the Parliament, it has two houses, the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, respectively, the lower house and the upper house. Fine. And in the UK parliamentary system, it is also the House of Commons and the House of Lords. So this is a similarity. Now, some differences also persist. In US, the form of government is presidential in nature. The president himself is the head of the government as well as the head of the state. In UK and India, they follow a parliamentary form of government in which the head of government is different from head of state. In case of UK, the head of state is the monarch, like currently Prince Charles, and in case and the prime minister is the head of government, the day-to-day affairs, conducting the business of the legislative assembly, the council of ministers, taking decision making laws. In India, the head of state is the president. The head of state in these parliamentary democracies are ceremonial positions because the president, although law has to be provided an assent by the president to become a bill, has to get the assent of the president to become a law in India. But the major decisions, the president has to act on the aid and advice of the prime minister who leads the council of ministers. So here the head of government is the prime minister. Okay. Then what else? US is wholly a federal, follows a federal form of government, that is, the powers are equally shared between the center and the states. India has a quasi federal structure in which, again, federal in the sense that states and center has been given separate parts, but in some circumstances, like residuary powers list, in some matters of national importance, the center takes priority over the state. In case of UK, the parliament is sovereign. Okay, it is a unitary form of government. The power is concentrated at the government, in the government at the center. Okay, so these are the major differences and similarities between the two. Now we have to discuss the method of the government further, the structure of the government. So in US, we discussed that it is a presidential form of system, House of Senate and House of Representatives. So there are three main elections which are followed. So one public election, one public election for the House of Senate, one public election for the House of Representatives, and one election, the third one, for the president, which is not directly who is not directly elected by the people. They are it is He is indirectly elected by an electoral college. We'll come to that very interesting part. Then contrast how with India, I can take an example. So in India, what happens is that when the Lok Sabha, the elections of the prime minister, take place, so there are various constituencies, different states. So the people elect the MPs or the member of parliaments. Okay, so the the majority vote it majorly decides the who is going to be the largest party in power, and the MPs represent the seats in the parliament or the legislative part. Now in USA, the major part is that there are a total of 538 seats. Fine. So out of the 538 seats in the government, in the presidential, in so there 100 seats they belong to the Senate. Okay, 435 seats they belong to representatives, and three seats are represented by the capital, Washington DC. Washington DC stands for Washington in District of Columbia. Okay, so Washington DC. So total 538. So since president is independent of the party, it is not necessary that, unlike India, where the prime minister is elected, he is a member of the single largest party who has won the majority, or the leader of the single largest party in a coalition government. Here, president is independent of the members or the parties who represent or are elected in the House of Representatives and the Senate. Okay, they can belong to a different party, because elections for president and elections for the legislature, representatives, House of Representatives and House of Senate, are different. Now again, some similarities, interesting similarities and differences. So in this 50 states, Senate has, the US has 50 states. So the seats assigned to each state in terms for the Senate elections, they are two in number. So they are irrespective of the population, 50 into 200. But in the House of Representatives, the seats or the candidates, they represent that population, that particular population. So higher the population of a particular state, higher will be the seats or the number of representatives in that legislature. Okay, so what that means is, for example, California. California is the most populated state. It has the highest population among the 50 states. So it has the highest number of representatives which are elected to the House, to the Congress, the structure, the Senate plus representatives. They are no, they it is known as the Congress. So 53 electors or representatives are there. In Alaska, which is quite huge, but it has very less population. It has only one representative in the Congress. Okay, so here 53. So one we can add two, the Senate who are representing Alaska. So one will be part of House of Representatives, and two will be part of the House of Senate. Similarly here 53 will be part of representatives and two will be the part of Senate. Unlike now, in if we consider India, just to make a contrast and make things absolutely clear, because this is the interesting part. Here, representative in India, House of Representatives is equivalent to what? The Lok Sabha or the lower house. So lower house, again, similar basis. There are now 543 seats in the Lok Sabha. So those 543 seats, the representatives of this Lok Sabha, the MPs, they represent a particular state. If it has a higher population, so more number of MPs will be elected from that state in the lower house. But unlike in this, where the seats of the Senate in every state is fixed in US, in India, the upper house or the Rajya Sabha, it is also allocated the seats on the basis of population. It is not fixed. So, but again, the concept of the upper and lower house in both the countries is same. The majority of the laws, the basic decision is made by the lower house. The major work of the upper house, in case of India, the Rajya Sabha, or the Senate, or the upper house of the United States Congress, is to keep a watch, scrutinize some of the decisions. It is like George Washington said, it is the sourcer, the Senate is like the sourcer of cooling coffee. So, in terms that to avoid hasty decisions, obviously, like in Lok Sabha in India, what happens is major like laws are passed, so it has to go through the passage of two houses, Lok Sabha and agreed by the Rajya Sabha. Obviously, there are some different precedents and different anomalies or exceptions. So here also upper house takes the same place. So I think this basic structure is clear. Okay. So president again, in case of India, presidential elections we have discussed, electoral college we'll discuss in detail. In case of India, the president is elected again by the elected members of the parliament, that is the elected MPs of upper and lower houses, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, and the elected members, elected MLAs of the state legislative assemblies. Don't get confused. Basically, we are focusing on US. So I hope it is clear to you. Now, vote and postal ballots, again, very interesting. So, again, some first we'll get to US and contrast it with our country, India. Okay, so there are different methods. One is postal ballots. Okay, so obviously, this is we are talking about US voting system. So, US voting system, postal ballots, what happens is the authorities will send you an envelope to your home. You have to pull out the ballot paper, you have to mark your option, then you have to seal the envelope, sign it, and then date it, and then deposit it in a drop box or send it by the USPS, that is the United States Postal System. In India, basically we have the EVMs, electronic voting machine. Okay, what other methods are there? So postal ballots is there. Another is you can straight away walk to the voting center or the precinct where the voting. So there will be a machine. Okay. So in that particular machine, digital machine, so you will be shown a group of electors, the consisting of the electoral college. So out of those electors, you will have to select one according to your particular state assigned to. So after selecting that uh, particular candidate, a slip, a verifiable slip, a paper slip will be generated consisting of that paper. So that paper you can mark with your ballot, with your you can physically mark, and then that is inserted into a scanner, much like what we have in various competitive examinations in India, like the OMR sheet. So you mark the paper, then it is sent to a machine. So it is a way of verifying. It leaves in US elections, we have a paper trail is left in order to verify the authenticity and the genuineness of elections, and the voters can also get confirmed that I have voted for a particular candidate. Other system is that you can mark it on the machine itself, then that will be generated and again fed to the scanner. And the third part, which is very less used, is that you straight away press the button in the machine and it will be stored in a virtual memory. That will be similar to EVM. But electronic voting machines in India, there is a concept of electronic voting machines which is not used in the US. Okay, so why this sort of, you may say that this is an aged concept or an old concept, because in India also before the advent of EVMs there was physical voting, but here what is happening in case of US is there is considerably less population to manage. So in case of India, earlier we had incidents of booth capturing, violence, although still it is there, then proxy votes, then absentee votes, then less population, managerial population, then the trends, the traditions which have the verification via the paper trail can be done. EVMs or machines were experimented with, but EVMs are prone to, again, like a lot of propaganda is sometimes spread by the people in US, fringe elements, that they are prone to this manipulation and damage. But don't think that the EVMs in India Like some politicians, after losing elections, they say, okay, EVMs are manipulated, they don't count, they are corrupted. But Election Commission has time and again confirmed the Election Commission is highly responsible. It is properly conducted. Okay. And so this is again to put it into perspective. So currently, the registered voters in the US is around 160 million, out of which 55, more than 55 million have already voted. The actual election date is on 5th November, but the government of and the authorities of USA, they persuade or they encourage citizens to use postal ballots or visit personally, physically visit the precincts or the election centers to cast their vote via scanner, the machines, and get the votes tabulated. In India, there was a concept for a voter verified paper audit trail, VVPAT. So what happens in this is when you cast your vote, for a few after casting your vote, there is a machine kept on the side which generates a slip, and you can see the person or the candidate for whom you have voted. But there is no actual slip which you can take out. In this, you can take out that slip and then feed it into the scanner like an OMR sheet. Okay. So this is because we know it is held on Tuesday. Offices are not closed. It is not a federal holiday. So if all the 160 million people they decide to show up and vote on Tuesday, so massive queues and mismanagement can happen. Okay. So now we again next on the agenda will be some voting trends, voting trends and the candidates involved. So candidates again for the Democrats are usually recognized with the blue color, although little darker blue, but it will not be easily legible on this dark board. So Democrats, the presidential candidate is Kamala Harris, and the vice presidential candidate is Tim Walz. Okay. So normally the president, the party will they belong to the same party, unlike again India, but I'm not going to discuss that. Again, in case of Republicans, although they are identified with red color, but I'm intentionally using this for the ease of legibility. So here the presidential candidate is our very own Donald Trump, and the vice presidential candidate is JD Vance. Okay. So he is JD Vance. Some additional information. He is currently the senator from the House of Senate, senator of Ohio. Okay. And Tim Walz is currently the governor of the state of Minnesota. Fine. Then other representatives, these are the major party, but there are other representatives also. There is one Green Party whose presidential candidate is Jill Stein. Okay. Then there is the Libertarian Party. Okay. Whose presidential candidate is Chase Oliver. And there is independent candidate whose candidate whose representative is Cornel West. So these are the major contenders for the Okay, so little bit about how these nominees, there are some terms, interesting terms. So you might have heard, for those residing in the US especially, this term, caucus. So for deciding the presidential nominee for each political party, these independent political parties like Democrats and Republicans, they hold huge, massive parties in which the aspiring candidates, they have to prove their loyalty, their capabilities to the larger audience, and then a presidential nominee is elected. So these are caucuses, are the presidential meetings. Fine. Then some of the voting trends and the population structure from, so largely it has been observed that we're going to use some terms like white, black. Don't take it otherwise. It's just for the sake of simplicity. So black, I'm not intending to offend anyone. So it has been that observed that the minorities. First, let us look at the population structure, the appropriate approximate population structure or the demographics of the voting population. So out of the entire 160 million registered candidates who are eligible to vote, 67% are whites, 67% are whites, 13% are blacks or colored people. Again, forgive me for offending if I offend anyone. 12% are Latins or Hispanics. Again, these are not similar terms. There is difference between, but for the sake of simplicity, I am using them as synonyms. And 5% are the Asian population. So again, the criteria is very similar to India. He should be a citizen of the United States, eligible to vote. He should be 18 years or above, and he should be registered with the electoral system of that particular state. Okay, similar to India. Okay. So now the interesting part over this is what I want to tell, that it has some trends have been observed over the years, that which part of the demography votes for which party. So it has been observed that the minorities, the white, college educated people, and the blacks or the colored people, they have an inclination towards the Democrats. That is why I've written it as blue. On the other hand, or we can say non-white. So on the other hand, the white, non-college educated people, they have a propensity to vote for the Republicans, but it tends to vary. Okay. So there, the end result of who will take over the reins over the United States of America as president is an intersection of various components: gender, race, development, ethnicity, the various issues which are in that, the electoral college. Okay, so all this we are going to discuss. Now, aspect one of the most important aspect which I intentionally delayed, we are going to discuss, is the electoral college. The three major types of elections which are held in US we have discussed. One is for the House of Representatives, one is for the House of Senate, the Senate, and one is the indirect election for the election of president. Now, for the election of president, he is not directly elected by the people, the citizens. He is elected by what are known as the electoral college. So their number is same as the number of seats in the Congress total. So total we had discussed 538. So there are 538 members, electorates, or the 538 members of the electorate college. Okay, and they represent whatever, for example, in the House of Representatives, if there are particular districts, like we talk about 53 in California, then or plus 2 Senate. So there will be total of 55 electorates. So they are same as the House, as the state representative by the, so the a state which has Senate number of people forming contributing to the Senate plus the representatives, that is the same number of the Electoral College. Okay, and of course, in order to become president, a person or candidate, presidential candidate, has to secure the majority of votes of this 538 person, which will be what? 270. Okay, so 270 into 2, because if it is stuck at 269, so the 270 are the majority, is the target number which has to be achieved. Fine, but it has been largely observed that the Electoral College does not represent the popular will of the people. One of the criticisms. Okay, so what happened during the 2016 elections when Donald Trump was elected the president? The total number of votes, for example, if all 160 million people of US vote, so the total number of votes will be 160 million. But during 2016 elections, Hillary Clinton was his opponent, presidential opponent from the Democratic Party. Hillary Clinton received 2.87 million more votes than Donald Trump. See, electorates, for example, 538 people are there. So 538, some electorates, these some of these people will represent one party, Democratic Party, and the some people will represent the other party. Okay, so out of these 538 electorates, if we consider the population, total population which voted for the presidents, so Hillary Clinton received this much amount more votes than Donald Trump. But since Donald Trump secured majority of the electoral weight, 304. So the target was 270. He secured 304 electoral votes. That is, for example, if I show you this map of America. So, for example, let us take California. Okay. So there are 55 members of the Electoral College representing both the parties. Now, Electoral College, the members of the College, they are selected from the party affiliates or the leaders of that particular party, or those who are supporters of the party. Okay, so 55 for 55 for Democrats, and then there are 55 for Republicans. So suppose 43, 43, the entire population of California has voted such that 43 members of the Electoral College belonging to the Republicans, they have secured the majority. So in this case, for the Democratic Party, 55 minus 43, only 12 members of the Electorate College belonging to the Democratic Party, they have received votes. So this state will go to the this state this state will go to the Democrats. Okay, so here again it is winner take all system. This is winner take all system. So irrespective of whatever votes are cast, if this 55 out of the 55 districts, the electors, there are different districts, there are different districts. So various electors from both parties, both major, where I'm talking about major parties. So they have received in such a way, for example, this has gone to this electorate college of the Republicans. This has gone to Democrats. So total, if the electoral college of the entire state, the electorate gains majority, so that becomes first part. So all the 55 seats will go to that presidential candidate. So in this case, what happened was, if we consider the case of Donald Trump versus Hillary Clinton, so the electoral college, which was supposed to vote for Trump, it secured majority of the seats or majority of the electorate votes from California, and irrespective of the other vote, who also heavily voted for the Democrats, they were sort of neglected, erased, and the entire state, 55 votes out of total of 538, they went to Trump. So, although the entire vote, the total votes of the 66% who voted in 2016, the majority of the total votes went to Hillary Clinton, but the majority of the electorate votes out of the 538 electorate votes, they that went to Donald Trump. So, this is also a criticism of the US electoral college system, because there are some smaller states with lower population which are known as swing states. We are coming to it, which are known as swing states, which have been shown to influence the election. These are smaller states. I'll talk about smaller states which represent a lower, a smaller number of population, but still they decide the outcome of the elections. So, despite the fact that California, or for that matter Texas, are considerable, have a considerable population, the national voting, for example, in Hillary Clinton's case, the national vote went to popular vote went to Hillary Clinton, but due to the electoral college system, Trump won. So the popular opinion is not was not represented properly. So this is one of the major criticisms of the electoral college. Obviously, another thing is that those states which are not efficient or not important for swinging or waving the elections in one particular direction or in the favor of one particular party, the campaigning and the resources, their issues are also often neglected. Okay, so we'll talk in detail. This might appear somewhat confusing to you, but this is a very important concept, the electoral college. Now, the next issue of the electoral trend. So we were talking about some general trends in the election. Now there are two major parties, Democratic Party and the Republican Party. So some states for decades have been voting for a particular party. So that is due to majorly two reasons. One is that the ideology of the majority of the people there belongs to is same as the ideology of the particular party. For example, one majority of a population of a particular party may be inclined towards Democrats, other may be towards Republicans. Moreover, it has been seen in some states such as Texas. They have been voting regularly since the election of the President Ronald Reagan in 1980. The people of Texas have been majority or majorly voting for the Republican Party. So the like in India, we have workers of the party who work on the ground level and mobilize the population to and use their campaigns to exercise their influence, that influence of that party has gradually reduced. So some parties, some states have been taken that they will definitely, the probability is maximum that they will vote for a particular party, either Republican or Democratic. Okay, so this I will show with the help of this map. Very interesting. So states like I mentioned, so states like Texas, okay, states like Ohio, okay, JD Vance is the vice presidential candidate from the Republican Party. They are bound, almost it is certain that they will, the Electoral College, which will be victorious here, will belong to the Republican Party. On the other hand, if we consider the Democratic Party, so it has been observed over the years that the states like California, Michigan, New York, they have a propensity that they are going to majorly vote for the majorly vote for the Democratic Party. Even this Minnesota, okay, the vice presidential candidate from the Democrats that belongs to the, okay. Now, I was talking about the swing states. So, it has been observed that when the campaigns take place, these states which are bound to represent or elect one particular candidate of one particular party, these are often neglected. Hardly any campaign rallies are conducted in such states. Majority of the campaign rallies, they are conducted in the swing states. What are swing states? Swing states basically, swing states are basically those states which do not adhere to a political ideology. Either the people in those states are apolitical, or there is a stiff competition. The majority, there is stiff competition between the population. For example, half the population favors the Democratic Party, or half, almost half, favors the Republican Party. So in that, those states are given more attention. Millions of dollars are spent just to campaign in those particular states by the presidential candidates, so as to tip the scales in their balance. So currently, seven such states have been identified, which are known as the swing states. So this is also very important or very interesting concept. So one swing state is this. One swing state is Pennsylvania. Fine. One swing state, another is North Carolina, Georgia, then Michigan. This whole is Michigan. This is Lake Michigan. Okay. Wisconsin. Fine. Then Nevada, Arizona. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven. So seven states have been recognized as swing states where the tilt can go to either party. Now, as per the current political predictions, they can be varied. Okay, so currently Kamala Harris has been shown with the edge that she is bound to win around 229 of the 538 electoral votes. Okay, and on the other hand, sorry, 229, they should be in the blue color, 229 Democratic Party. And on the other hand, Donald Trump has been projected to win around 216. Okay, so now what is the benchmark or what is the target? So Kamala Harris, for securing the presidential reigns, or position of president, she requires 41 more electoral votes. And Donald Trump, on the other hand, he requires 54. So if we consider the total of these two, 229 plus 216, we get a total of 445. Okay. And if we combine all these seats in the representatives in the Congress, consisting of both representatives and Senate, so here the total seats are 93. Okay. So 93, if we add 93 to 445, so we'll get 538, which is the number required for victory. So that is why these swing states become very important. Just keep in mind additional information. All the states, they follow the same procedure. Two seats are reserved for the Senate, and rest they are elected by the Electoral College. The exception to this are the exception to this are Maine and Nebraska. These are the Maine and Nebraska, which are slightly different. We are not going to go into that. It will become further cumbersome. So this is how the projections stand, the importance of swing states. Now, last but not the least, one of the penultimate sections are the influences or the factors, the X factors, which which may come at play in deciding the president. Okay. So one of the factor is the Arabs and the Muslims. So they are also in significant proportion. Again, Arabs are different from Muslims. Just for the sake of simplicity, I am most of the Arabs are Muslims, so I am for the sake of simplicity, I'm considering that they also form a significant proportion of the minority population of the US. So now what is happening is, if you have observed Joe Biden's administration, so we know Middle East wars going on. So demand for independent state of Palestine, you can join the dots. Joe Biden's government, or the Democratic government which has been in power till now, it has been supporting Israel. So obviously vote for they won't want to vote for Democratic Party. But Kamala Harris has pledged, or he or she has promised, that once she is elected to power, she comes to power as president, she'll find out a way and bring the war to a stop. Okay. So, but how she will do so, that is not clear till now. On the other hand, Trump, we know his policies are more radical. He's also no friend of the Islamic states. But surprisingly, what the polling trends till now have shown, that there is a tilt, a significant proportion of these Arabs and Muslims, they are becoming pro-Trump. So this can swing the another minority which I would like to talk about recently, which came into picture for its notoriety, is that Trump was 2 days before conducting a rally at Madison Square Garden. So there is a comedian who said that Puerto Rico is nothing more than an island of floating island of garbage. Now, Puerto Rico, the status is it is officially recognized as an unincorporated territory of the United States. Okay, it is given legible representation in the House, in the Congressional House. Now, a lot they any citizen, any person taking birth in Puerto Rico, he is given US citizenship by birth, and a lot of them have migrated to mainland USA. So they also form a part of the vote bank. Now, these simple issues, trivial issues, may tilt the balance in favor of the Democrats and against Trump. Then another issue which has come to light is that if you remember the initial part of the lecture, that the non-whites or the black people, they are more prone to vote for the Democrats ideally. But there has been some apprehension among them that they really willing to accept a woman black president. So President Obama also gave them a scolding quite recently that this perception is frivolous. Then other factors at play is that there are some influential figures in the political sector who are supporters of either Trump or Kamala Harris and who have the potential to swing the scales in one particular candidate's favor. So they are, one is Nikki Haley, Nikki Haley, a supporter of Republicans, okay, and the other is Liz Cheney, who is the daughter of the erstwhile Republican Party Vice President Dick Cheney. So she is supporting the Democrats, Kamala Harris. Okay, so these are some of the issues. Okay, then finally, now recently, if you have come reading the current affairs, so Mr. Trump, he took the onus or responsibilities of providing meals at McDonald's. Okay, so I don't probably most probably it's a gimmick opinion, but apart from that, whatever recently debates have taken place, it has been observed that they have actually distorted or deviated from the actual issues. That is taxation, abortion policies, immigration, then tariffs, climate change, education. Now, I will just illustrate or narrate few of the two sides, the issues and the perspectives or the opinions, the policies which either Harris or Trump will follow once they come to power. For example, when it comes to climate change, Trump clearly has a policy of mocking climate change. So he is hell bent of doing away with subsidies to green energy and following the way of fossil fuels, which is again not good for the environment. Kamala Harris, on the other hand, is pro environment. But again, we had discussed the concept of swing states. So recently, when she was conducting a campaign in Pennsylvania has greatly developed or greatly benefited from the exploration of oil and natural gas. And it also has shale gas, another fossil fuel. So she was found to be supporting those ventures in this state. So it is a swing state. So she cannot. So these variations or vacillation differences they arise now and again. Okay. Then taxation. For example, Trump has vowed to reduce corporate tax. Then, if we consider tariffs, Trump is very pro tariff. Wants that Chinese goods should be a high tariff should be applied on Chinese goods. And in that case, if high tariffs are applied, even exports from India, our nation, might be affected. Then education, stark contrast. Kamala Harris is in favor of public funding, government funding to schools. Donald Trump, on the other hand, pledges that once he comes to power, he would encourage or emphasize upon the private sector education more. Then abortion. Abortion in Kamala Harris's case, you might remember this issue of Roe versus Wade case, in which the abortion was criminalized in states. But Kamala Harris is willing to work for the welfare of women, the fund the welfare. Trump has a contrasting or a stand which is not very clear. Then immigration policies also. Now Trump is very anti-immigrant. Doesn't want the immigration from the Islamic states. He's very concerned about the border with Mexico. And again, Kamala Harris is not radical or extremist to that extent, but she also holds sway for, again, we come to the majority voting states. This California, it shares a border with Mexico. So here also, she has to be wary. Then here also, these border with state sharing border with Mexico, she has to be very careful about talking about immigration. the illegal drug trafficking, smuggling, illegal immigration. Trump is of the opinion of straight deportation of the illegal immigrants. So all these issues have to be clearly taken into consideration. So whatever arguments, whatever frivolous middle school arguments have taking place, one each other calling stupid or retarded, fascist and whatnot. I hope the presidential elections they voice or reflect the popular opinion. The America grows. Let's make America great again. That is the tagline of Trump. So this is all about what the basics, the interesting things which I came to know about American elections. So till we meet again next time, Jai Hind.